Our first guest is Jamie Taylor of the Modern.net show. And as you can guess, he is an expert in .net, Python, Go, generative AI systems, and so much more. He shares his knowledge, he does interviews, he brings his extensive experience to the conversations. And in this part of our conversation, he talks about how the podcast can lead to other things that lead to other things that lead to other things. And I don't want to give too much away, but there were some very pleasant surprises that happened because of his .net podcast. So let's go to Jamie. All right. So Jamie, how has your podcast impacted your business?
So, we were talking offline about how I use the podcast to actually drive clients to the business. So I work as a software development contractor / consultant, depending on which country you're in, right? In the UK, we're contractors. Elsewhere in the world, we're listed as consultants. And what I do is, I'll put out these episodes where I'm interviewing people and talking about some cool thing to do with software development, specifically in the technology called .NET. And then what we do is I then say, hey, what would be cool is you've heard me talk about how great this thing is, and you've heard me discuss kind of how I would build this and talking through how this all works. Wouldn't it be cool if I was on the team or working on a project for you? And I've had quite a few business leads through it. And I've had connected to the podcast. I've been invited to do a whole bunch of talks in person. And then when I go do the talks, people are then saying, hey, we're talking in person now. Here's my business card. We'd love you to come and do this work, or, let's have a chat about what you can do. And maybe you can do some mentoring or something like that for our team, stuff like that. So it's been an interesting ride. So I would say, yeah, it's brought business in.
Yeah. This is part of Podcast to Connect. We're in the middle of a season right now where we're following April from Dorky Podcast through a series of kind of like mini coaching sessions where we're working through her audience growth. The entire season is focused on audience growth for her history podcast. It's an entire season. We're at episode 2. It'll go to episode 8 by the end of the year. So please do join us for that. When people listen to the podcast and then contact you, what do they say? Do they say, I listened to your podcast? Or do they say, I found you online? Like, how do they talk about the podcast?
So sometimes it's a combination of the two. So I have a contact form on the website, and the contact form is just like, a name or handle, because some people don't want to give their name, an email address so I can hit reply, and then like an empty text box for a message, and then your standard sort of capture, make sure it's not a bot. And that will come through. And, if it's come from the website, it's usually, hey, I've been listening to the show for a while. It would be great if we could get together and do some work. But I also post episodes over onto LinkedIn, because business podcast, right? I posted both as myself, and I have a page for the podcast, like a business for the podcast, that I post there as well. And people will reach out through that too, and they'll say, hey, cool, it's been great, I've been connected with you for a while, I really love this episode. This episode was about, for instance, one of the most recent ones at the time of recording was on AI. So, I was talking to the general program manager of AI at Microsoft. So, he kind of knows his stuff, right?
Oh, a little bit, he dabbles.
Yeah. And so folks reached out and said, hey, you've got this knowledge, you shared this knowledge in the episode. Let's talk about how we can use that in our programs, in our software suites, in our applications, in our enterprise. And so a little bit of work has come through from that too. So it's just like, it's sharing that knowledge. And I'm sure you've said this several times on your show in the past, Steph, about it's about giving that value. And I love giving free value, because it could be that I know something, or maybe the guest knows something that a listener doesn't. And then, it might even be just enough words that people can go away and Google, or go away and ask their LLM of choice and say, I heard this on the show. They talked about this thing. What is this thing? Enter. And, they get the information, right? And
exactly.
So, and I feel like my own is a bit big-headed, but I feel like I'm aiming to be more of a force multiplier, just spread this information as far and wide as possible, right?
Yes. I love that. I love that. That is absolutely my core with podcasting marketing, the whole shebang, my business is that, yeah, I know people are like, oh, don't give away too much. And I'm like, no, give it away. The other advice I heard that I really like is give away the information, charge for the services, charge to do it, yourself. Because there's so much information out there. People have been very generous with me. I've learned so much from others. And I actually, a lot of the services I personally buy online for my business or for my personal life come from like valuable things that I found that people put online. And then I went, wait, what are they selling? Like do they have a course? No, wait, now I'm interested because I like what they
Mhm.
did, what they said, what they did, what they shared. That was valuable. And now I want more because I know them, I trust them, I like them, I like how they think, I like how they work. And now I want more. I want more.
Yep.
But it's interesting what you said that you have a podcast page on LinkedIn, but not a business page on LinkedIn. Can you
Mhm.
dig into that some more? Why'd you make that decision?
Oh, so yeah, I've got a business page for the business as well,
Okay.
but I figured it would be really good to know who is connected with me specifically because of the podcast.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
what I also do then is I roll that into if anyone wants to sponsor the show, I can say, look, there's
Mhm.
this many followers on the artist formerly known as Twitter. There's
Mhm.
this many followers on LinkedIn. There are
Yeah.
this many subscribers on say YouTube or whatever.
Mhm.
It's pretty much impossible with an audio only podcast, which is what I produce, to
Yeah.
get an accurate subscriber count. But if I can
Yeah.
give all of the other information about
Mhm.
this many people on LinkedIn will see your message, this
Mhm.
many people on X or whatever we're calling it will see your message,
Yeah.
this many people on YouTube, this many people over on Apple Podcasts, because on the
Mhm.
Apple Podcast app, because it's obviously so tied to the iOS
Yeah.
operating system, they can then actually tie a download and a listen to an individual person, right? The same with Spotify, right? Because it's a
Mhm.
closed app, which is
Yeah.
why all of these other apps have spun up really quickly, over the last few years. Hey, put your podcast on our app and we'll tell you how great you are, because we can then see legitimately how
Yeah.
many people are watching, listening, consuming, right?
Mhm.
So that's
And
kind
that's
of why, just so I've got those numbers. Sorry, Steph, I introduced
no,
interrupted
that's
you
fine.
there.
That's what a lot of people forget, especially business podcasters who have so many other hats to wear in their business, is that it's not just the audio. Where you are everywhere online, your online presence is a huge part of your message, your story, your business, your outreach. I mean, it's just huge. You really have to look and potentially your pitch deck if you're going to have sponsors or advertisers or something like that. It's everywhere you are, not just your downloads. It's how many people are following you, how many people are commenting, all of your newsletter subscribers, all of those things combined is your your power on the online space, your impact. Yeah. So I'm really glad you said that.